Welcome back. Here's a look at today's closing numbers. Down day all across the board. That NASDAQ closed down 0.5 point. If you're supplying products to Walmart, get ready to cut your prices. The retail giant's lower earnings projection has them looking for less expensive inventory. Despite its troubles, Walmart still raked in $340 million in sales. Sony Pictures offers up to $8 million to settle the hacking lawsuit from its employees. Last year, a cyber attack left the information of Sony employees vulnerable. Victims of identity theft will receive up to $10,000. The U.S. economy bounces back, but pensions have taken a hit. According to the Financial Times, the U.S. ranks 14th out of 25 countries ranked by the Melbourne Mercer Global Pension Index, which measures pension health systems. U.S. housing construction jumped to 6.5% in September. The increase in production is attributed to the growth in apartment construction.
Behold, Chinese President Xi Jinping getting the royal welcome from Queen Elizabeth in London on Tuesday. But while it's all pomp and circumstance in the UK, things might not be so rosy back home. The Chinese announced a mere 6.9% economic growth, the lowest in a long time. Still, even with that figure, a lot of skeptics have come out. Let's talk about the economy, the Chinese economy, a little bit more. We welcome in economist and Forbes contributor Gordon Chang. Gordon, great to have you with us.
Thank you so much.
All right, so we're looking at those GDP numbers. I'm guessing you're one of the skeptics is not buying into the 6.9%.
No, I'm not. When you look at some of the underlying indicators, it shows a much slower economy. So, for instance, the National Bureau of Statistics, along with the 6.9% report, also said that electricity consumption grew by only 1.0% in the quarter. Now, you can't sort of reconcile those two numbers. Now, some people say, oh, well, you know, electricity is no longer the gold standard of Chinese economic activity because it only represents manufacturing. But if you look at NBS's number for industrial output for the quarter, that was 5.9%. You can't reconcile 1.0 and 5.9. Now, we don't have a full set of Q3 data yet, but nonetheless, there are a lot of things that cannot be explained, even when you compare official number versus official number.
Yeah, the Wall Street Journal recently pointed out some other areas that might indicate slower growth in China, a decline in imports and in exports, falling prices at factories, a slowing down of fixed asset investment. So, not looking good for China. The Chinese officials, they had estimated that we were going to see 7% growth. Was this the plan all along to come in just slightly better than their estimates?
Well, I think that they saw that the consensus estimates of foreigners were about 6.8%. They were guessing that that was what China was going to report. Though I think most foreign observers realize the economy is growing probably half of what Beijing is saying. For instance, Citigroup's William Bowder, who's their chief economist, says the data is mendacious, his word, and he said, well, maybe it's 4% growth. I think it's maybe 1 or 2. In Beijing, they're actually saying 2.2% privately among themselves. So, you know, this is an economy that is somewhere which is pretty low. But the point is not what the real number is, because no one really knows what it is, including Chinese officials. It's the direction of the economy, which is downwards, and they can't change that direction.
One last question for you before we move on to Korea. I want to talk about Korea a little bit as well. What is the broader implications here if the Chinese economy is slowing down as much as we think it might be?
Well, I think there's a number of things. First of all, foreign companies doing business in China are going to be reporting poor Q3 results. And the Q2 results were pretty bad as well, except for 2 companies. Nike and Apple did very well, but most of the rest of the foreign companies in China were very disappointed by what happened. I think we're going to see much more of that going forward. And I think people are going to realize that China is not the engine of global growth that everyone thought that it was.
All right, so maybe an awakening there. Let's talk about Korea a little bit. President Obama says he is ready to engage with the North Koreans if they're serious about having a serious discussion on the nuclear weapons there. This comes as the South Korean president visited the White House recently. Is there any movement there? I also hear reports that the North Koreans might be getting ready to test some of their nukes.
Yeah, the South Korean National Intelligence Service is reporting that there's activities around North Korea's nuclear detonation site. You know, we're going to expect that soon. They've got to test because they sell these things to the Iranians, and the Iranians want to see that they actually work. Also, the North Koreans need to test in order to make sure that they're making the progress that they think. So, clearly the North Koreans are not going to want to give up their nukes, which means that both President Obama and President Park of South Korea are not going to be able to begin discussions with the North Koreans about anything.
All right, Gordon Chang, thanks so much for your insight on this. Remember to pick up his book, The Coming Collapse of China. Good to see you as always, Gordon.